Imagine a league where billions are spent every season on the biggest stars, the flashiest transfers, and the richest contracts. A competition dominated by giants like Manchester United, Chelsea, and Arsenal. Clubs backed by fortunes and global power. Now picture a team that barely survived relegation the year before, with players nobody wanted, a budget that looked like pocket change, and odds of 5,000 to 1 to win it all. That team was Leicester City. And in 2016, they didn't just win, they humiliated England's $50 billion league and shocked the entire world of football. At the dawn of the 2015-16 Premier League season, Leicester City weren't just underdogs, they were considered a miracle simply for surviving.
I think we went 18 games without winning.
I remember talking with the national team, and everyone was like, Riyad, you're gonna go down. I was like, guys, there's 9 games left. We have 7 at home. We never know.
The year before, they had spent most of the campaign at the very bottom of the table, only pulling off what fans called the Great Escape in the final weeks. Bookmakers put their odds of winning the league at 5,000 to 1, the same chances they gave to events like Bigfoot being discovered or Elvis Presley turning up alive. Nobody believed they could even dream of competing with England's elite, while clubs like Manchester City and Chelsea were breaking transfer records and flexing billion-dollar squads. Leicester's team was built from cast-offs and bargains. Jamie Vardy, once a factory worker playing non-league football, was leading their attack. Riyad Mahrez, an unknown Algerian winger signed for just £400,000, was barely recognized outside France. Even their manager, Claudio Ranieri, was mocked by the press when he was hired, called outdated and uninspiring. Everything about Leicester screamed relegation battle, not glory, but as the season began, whispers started to spread. Leicester weren't just surviving, they were winning. Match by match, goal by goal, this group of so-called misfits started climbing the table, and soon the football world realized this wasn't luck, it was the beginning of something no one thought possible. Leicester's rise wasn't fueled by superstar transfers or billion-dollar owners. It was built on smart scouting and players who were overlooked by everyone else. The club spent just under £30 million assembling their squad, a figure that wouldn't even buy half of a single Manchester City signing at the time, yet every piece fit perfectly. Jamie Vardy, who not long ago was earning £30 a week in non-league football, became the heartbeat of the attack, scoring week after week with relentless energy and a hunger money couldn't buy. Riyad Mahrez, dismissed as too skinny and fragile when he arrived from France's second division, turned into the league's most electrifying playmaker, gliding past defenders with ease. N'Golo Kanté, a player no big club bothered to chase, was plucked from obscurity for just £5.6 million, and he would soon be hailed as the tireless engine that made the entire system run. Even the veterans had their roles. Captain Wes Morgan, once seen as a journeyman defender, transformed into a rock at the back, while Kasper Schmeichel, living in the shadow of his legendary father, finally proved he was a top-flight goalkeeper in his own right. Ranieri didn't have the resources to buy his way to success, so he leaned on tactics that maximized his players' strengths, lightning-fast counterattacks, defensive discipline, and a belief that they could outrun and outfight anyone. It wasn't flashy, but it was brutally effective. Week after week, this patchwork squad made of bargains and rejects kept outclassing England's billion-dollar super teams. The world was beginning to take notice, but what happened next would silence the doubters forever. Every underdog story needs defining moments, the kind that make believers out of doubters. For Leicester, those moments came thick and fast during the 2015-16 campaign. Jamie Vardy went on a record-breaking scoring streak, netting in 11 consecutive Premier League matches, a feat that even legends like Thierry Henry and Cristiano Ronaldo had never achieved. Suddenly, the former factory worker was outscoring the most expensive strikers in the world. Riyad Mahrez turned into the league's most unstoppable winger, dancing through defenses with skill and flair that no one had predicted when he first arrived for a few £100,000. His partnership with Vardy was lethal. Mahrez the creator, Vardy the finisher. Together they destroyed defenses that had cost hundreds of millions to assemble. There were games that defined the season. A shocking 3-1 demolition of Manchester City at the Etihad, where Leicester didn't just win, they dominated. A gritty victory over Tottenham, their closest challengers, which silenced those who still believed the fairy tale would collapse under pressure. And of course, the game against Manchester United at Old Trafford, where a single point confirmed what seemed impossible. Leicester City, the team nobody believed in, were champions of England. The players weren't just competing, they were rewriting history in real time. Fans across the world started tuning in, rooting for the miracle to continue. Each goal, each victory carried the feeling of destiny, and as the season rolled on, it became clear, this wasn't luck, this was a revolution. Most fairy tales in football end when the trophy is lifted, but Leicester's story didn't fade away after 2016. Winning the Premier League wasn't a one-season miracle, it was the start of a new chapter where the underdogs dared to dream even bigger. For the first time in their history, Leicester played in the UEFA Champions League. Many expected them to crumble on the European stage, but instead they stunned everyone again, topping their group ahead of Porto, Copenhagen, and Club Brugge, and reaching the quarter-finals where they pushed Atletico Madrid to the limit. A club that once feared relegation was now standing shoulder to shoulder with Europe's elite. Domestically, they continued to prove their resilience. In 2021, they made history once again by lifting the FA Cup for the very first time, beating Chelsea at Wembley with a thunderbolt strike from Youri Tielemans. For fans, it wasn't just another trophy, it was proof that Leicester were more than a one-hit wonder. They could win on the biggest stages against the richest opponents, and on their own terms. They also added a community shield and built a reputation as giant killers who could frustrate and embarrass any top club on their day. Leicester became the model of what every outsider in football dreamed of being, proof that you didn't need billions to fight against the establishment. But as the celebrations faded, cracks slowly began to appear, and the miracle club would soon face struggles that no one had seen coming. After years of living the dream, reality finally began to catch up with Leicester City. Success on the pitch brought new expectations, bigger wages, and growing financial pressures. The same underdog model that had once made them invincible started to crack under the weight of ambition. Star players who had fueled the miracle began to leave for richer clubs. N'Golo Kanté joined Chelsea and instantly won another Premier League. Riyad Mahrez eventually moved to Manchester City, where he lifted multiple trophies. Even Harry Maguire, developed into a star at Leicester, was sold for a record £80 million. Each departure brought in money, but it also stripped away pieces of the magic that had made Leicester so unique. Meanwhile, injuries piled up, recruitment grew riskier, and managerial changes unsettled the squad. The tragic helicopter crash in 2018 that took the life of owner Vichai Srivadana devastated the club and its fans, casting a shadow over the miracle years. Though his son Ayawat stepped in, the emotional blow was enormous. Leicester still produced flashes of brilliance, challenging for the top four and lifting the FA Cup, but the consistency that once shocked the world was slipping away, and behind the scenes, financial struggles began to mount. The club had spent heavily to try to keep up with the giants they once embarrassed, but without Champions League money or billionaire backing, the numbers stopped adding up. By 2023, the unthinkable happened. Leicester City, just 7 years after being crowned champions of England, were relegated back to the championship. The story that had once inspired the world was now a cautionary tale of how quickly fortune can turn in football. As if relegation wasn't enough, Leicester's troubles deepened with the growing weight of financial scrutiny. The Premier League's profit and sustainability rules, better known as PSR, were designed to stop reckless spending and keep clubs accountable. But Leicester, desperate to keep pace with the giants they once humbled, had already stretched their budget to the breaking point. In 2024, reports surfaced that the club faced charges for breaching financial regulations, accusations that could lead to heavy fines or even points deductions. Leicester fought back, winning one tribunal against the league, but the cloud never lifted. Fresh allegations continued to emerge, and whispers grew louder. Had the Miracle Club gambled too much in their chase to remain relevant? The irony was cruel. The same system that allowed billion-dollar clubs to dominate with endless cash now threatened to punish the very underdog that had once exposed their flaws. Fans who had celebrated the miracle of 2016 were now holding their breath, fearing that off-the-pitch battles might undo the little stability the team had left. And yet, through all the chaos, Leicester remained defiant. The championship campaign brought moments of promise, but also the looming danger of punishment that could derail their fight for promotion. For a club that had already lived the impossible dream, the future suddenly looked uncertain. What had once been the greatest underdog story in football was now at risk of becoming a warning, a reminder that miracles, no matter how magical, are never safe from the harsh realities of modern football. Leicester City's triumph will always stand as football's greatest underdog story. A team built on bargains and belief humiliated England's $50 billion league, proving that money isn't everything. Yet their later struggles remind us how fragile success can be in the modern game. No matter what the future holds, 2016 remains untouchable. The year the impossible became reality.